Hey everybody, Argent here. And yes, you may be wondering, Argent, you're spending your Friday night doing a live stream about suicide. You don't have anything better to do with your time? Well, it's true. Truth is, this has been a really busy week. I had a huge project I was doing at work. And now that it's over, I don't know. I got to like 5 hours sleep last night, so not feeling great. Haven't been feeling great in general lately. So I figured I'd come on and do something productive with my time. And as normal, what I try to do with this is I try to help people out by having a discussion. Have a discussion about some issues that I think a lot of people don't really like to talk about. Um, it's, I think there's a lot of in general, I think there's a lot of stigma and shame involving mental illness. And sorry, just a question. You got any plans for future videos? Yes, I have a huge backlog of reaction reviews I have to do. I've just been kind of depressed and I've had other stuff I've been doing. But, anyways, I'll take questions later, maybe. So, yeah, I've been feeling down and I figured maybe this would be a good time to talk about this. So I think this is a topic a lot of people just have trouble bringing up. There's a lot of shame involved with it. Um, if you're a person who has kind of a decent moral conscience and just you're a decent person in general, I think kind of one of the issues that comes across it is you feel shame with regards to if you were to kill yourself or you hurt yourself, just the harm you do to your family. And I think kind of if you're a decent person, that's kind of the issue you have. So when you kind of start to feel these self-destructive urges, there's a lot of guilt that goes with it. Um, there's maybe you feel you're ungrateful to your parents. Maybe you feel you're betraying God, I guess. Something to that effect. So I think it's something a lot of people really just don't want to talk about. I think it's something though that has to be taken seriously. It's very easy to dismiss people with suicidal urges as being, I don't know, drama queens or seeking attention or that sort of thing. In a lot of cases, I do think it is. I know it's a cliche, but kind of a cry for help. But, anyways, so what makes people suicidal? I think to get to that, you have to go back to what kind of is the root problem of depression. What is kind of the thing at the heart of depression that makes it such a horrible illness and that makes it so debilitating? I think the best description of depression I've ever heard is I forget, it was an American psychologist who said depression is the inability to construct a future for yourself or an inability to kind of see a future for yourself. If you ever notice the more depressed you get and the more kind of unhappy you get, the shorter your time horizon becomes. What do I mean by time horizon? You lose your ability to think long term. You lose your ability to really think about the future. Because in general, a lot of life's problems are bad. Like maybe you're getting yelled at by your boss. Maybe you're fighting with your girlfriend. Maybe, I don't know, you're having a little bit of money trouble till you get your next paycheck. And none of these things will really last particularly long. But the more depressed you get, the shorter your time horizon becomes. Someone brings up time preference. Yes, it is. Your time preference just gets progressively higher as you get depressed. That's the way I was kind of thinking about it. But yeah, as you kind of go through a depressive phase, you your time preference goes up. It becomes harder to see the future, and eventually, what kind of happens when you reach I guess kind of the absolute height of depression is you feel like you're completely stuck in a single moment. Every moment goes on for like an eternity. Um, when you're kind of having a panic attack, it might only last a couple minutes or an hour or two, but it feels like it's just going on and on and on and on and on. And that kind of amplifies the problem, because not only are you going through this horrible experience, but the amount of time that it seems to be taking is also dramatically expanded. So I think what happens when people, a lot of the times, I mean, there's different types of suicide. There's kind of ones that come from suicidal ideation that comes from the short term. The short term is, oh my God, I'm going through this horrific incident. I don't know, maybe you're having a major fight, maybe you just got kicked out of your house, something like that. And you go through a panic attack, and it just becomes so intense, so just overwhelming and all-consuming. It just becomes very... you just need release. You need to get out of it. You need to do something to just take away the pain and to let yourself just recover. It's kind of like in boxing, you've just taken a whole bunch of punches over and over again, and you really need to just have it end. And I think a lot of people just can't bear the stress of a situation like that. And it depends how long a severe kind of anxiety attack like that goes on for. But the longer it goes on, the longer time gets stretched out, etc. So I think that's kind of an aspect of it to keep in mind. The other aspect of suicidal ideation tends to come, I think, and I'll get into kind of genetic and biological factors in a minute, but it tends to come from being worn down over time. And this is kind of the reason why a lot of disorders like bipolar, borderline, major depression, stuff like that have such high suicide rates. Because it's not just you're depressed one day, it's not just you're depressed another day. It's kind of a consistent thing going on. Like if you have severe social anxiety, like every day of your life, you suffer from it. And it's this intense, constant suffering that just kind of permeates every aspect of your life. And you just get worn down. You eventually just can't take it anymore. It's just so persistent. It's like a rock that's being hit with a sledgehammer. Eventually, little bits start to come off. Eventually, it starts to turn to powder, and that's kind of what your brain's like. I think I've actually looked it up, and for bipolar disorder, if you're not medicated, the mood swings the severe mood swings actually do damage to your brain over time. It actually does start to kind of tear itself apart, and kind of most forms of depression are like that. And kind of one of the big issues with depression in general, and this is kind of another reason why it makes it such a horrific illness, is the things that you need to do to stop being, or to get it better. I mean, I'm not trying to say that you can just snap your fingers and cure it, but how you start to get better. Maybe you start to work a job. Maybe you start to go to therapy. You start to go to church. Maybe you meet one or two people. Stuff like that. It takes away your motivation to do that. As I said, your kind of vision of the future becomes so narrow and so short. You might go, oh, I'm going to go see my doctor next week. But that next week feels like an eternity away. That's not really a solution. Maybe the answer is to go try to make a friend online or something, just so you have someone to talk to. But once again, you're like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through this? And that's a very difficult kind of aspect to it. And all these things kind of compound upon each other. And I do think as a society we don't really take mental illness as seriously as we should. It would be interesting if someone would do a really good study of how it was kind of how it was treated historically, or how common it was historically. Because I know a lot of people like, oh, in pre-modern society it didn't exist. Everybody was just kind of too busy working, and there's probably some truth to that. But I still think there probably is a lot of just stuff we don't really know about because it wasn't really diagnosed. So I'll just take a couple questions before I continue. So Dog Gonalet Elt says, not having any friends in anything, being by myself and not having accomplished anything in life and not being able to either. That's my situation. Now, this is, I think one of the most important things to keep in mind about depression is it comes with extremely low self-esteem. Part of it is you just are so consumed with self-hatred, self-doubt, and self-loathing that you won't take yourself seriously. So someone might give you very good advice. Someone might, you might say, oh, I really should get better at this. I really should. I have to go do this. I have to go do that. I need to have a positive attitude. That sort of thing. And you might kind of have all this good advice you're giving yourself. But then what winds up happening is when you go to kind of implement it, or you just don't take it seriously. You're like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, maybe you kind of are... a lot of times there's just kind of this all-consuming guilt, I think is one way to put it. You feel guilty the way you feel. You feel you're the only person like that. Loneliness is a very big part of depression. Not just being isolated, but feeling that no one can understand you. That no one's having kind of the same neuroses as you. That other people are confident, that other people are successful, that sort of thing. So just kind of a roundabout way of kind of responding to that. You probably have a lot of worth. You probably have actually touched a lot of people's lives in important ways. There probably is a lot of talents you have. That sort of thing. You can't recognize that yourself because you despise yourself and you basically want to hurt yourself. And in that situation, it's extremely difficult. I actually found the single most useful thing other than medication that helped me is when I did group therapy. Now, why was group therapy helpful? Because you got external validation that other people have that you're not kind of alone in the way you feel. So talking about like social anxiety, talking about thinking that other people are better than you, thinking that that other people are better than you, that you have kind of the same anxieties and the same problems, and very often, at least in my experience, I found that was very helpful. It helps to kind of alleviate some of your self-doubt, some of your self-hatred. It makes you to feel less alone and less that you're kind of a freak, and I think that is very helpful. The Dog Ganell follows up, it's more complex than that. Just too much to write out. I have an incurable and very painful disease. I don't know what to say other than I'm sorry. That sounds horrible. But I have been very active in trying to meet more friends, but everyone around here is mean. I have not accomplished anything because of my disease. I don't really know. It's probably not much comfort, but just from me, from some random guy on the internet, it's not your fault. You didn't choose to have that. That is a physical issue. That's not a lack of effort on your part. That's not a lack of personal character. That's not a reflection of you as a moral person. That's not a moral failing on your part. That is something bad that's happened to you. I think that's another thing you have to try to separate, and I know this is very difficult, kind of things that have happened to you in life that are beyond your control. I think accepting the fact that you have limited control over your life, and this is extremely difficult, is let's see. Barcode Baker says, "Hey Argent, I'd like to let you know you've inspired me to start making content. Thank you." Thank you. I really do appreciate that. That's kind of that external validation. And I don't mean that in kind of like an egotistical way. But it really makes my day whenever somebody says, I enjoy your stuff, or that kind of thing. But yeah, just back to the other things. So yeah, it's accepting that you have limited power over stuff is important. My friend Torellian, who's sometimes on, told me, he goes, Argent, something you have to understand is you're not responsible for other people's actions. And it's kind of it's liberating. It's hard to kind of accept. I mean, it's kind of like if someone's just an asshole and they're going to be an asshole to you, and they're just kind of an asshole in general. If you do something minor and they just freak out at you, that's not your fault. You're responsible for whatever minor thing you did, but the fact that they react the way they do isn't your fault. If someone, for instance, says either you kill this person or I'll kill your mother, or something like that, and you don't kill the person and they kill your mother, that's not your fault. You have no responsibility for that. You're not responsible for stuff other people do. So I think accepting your kind of limited ability to control your life is kind of an important part of coming to terms with stuff. I hope that kind of, I don't know, answers some of it. Do you find yourself turning to faith helps you out of these situations? That's a difficult question. I like to say faith doesn't really bring me much comfort, but it gives me the strength to endure, if that makes sense. I go through a lot of what's kind of called dark nights of the soul. That was something Mother Teresa had for most of her life. A dark night of the soul is when you can't feel God. You can't feel anything spiritual. You might be praying, you might go to church, you might be listening to music, and you just feel dead. I do think most people can feel that sense of the transcendent, feel that kind of sense of the divine. And that's just kind of, I think, naturally a natural part of humanity. But oftentimes when you're just going through a period of severe and total depression, you just lose that, and you completely lose your ability to perceive that kind of higher plane. And that makes it doubly difficult, because for a lot of people, that's kind of the chief way they find comfort, is in their faith. What I mean by strength to endure is, I think, focusing on God and keeping in mind God's existence gives you something outside of yourself to be accountable to. And I think that's very important. I think it's important to have someone else basically to live for. Just because I'm responsible to God and that I don't believe I have the right to take my own life, as bad as it would be, I doubt I would ever actually commit suicide, because I may have low self-esteem. I may not really value myself in the way, in my interest, but I do value what God wants. And God doesn't want me to kill myself. So because of that, I won't. I believe in trying to be a responsible and productive member of society, of trying to be a good son to my parents, of all those sorts of things. And I feel that those are responsibilities that I have regardless of how I'm feeling, regardless of what my personal pathologies might be. And I just think that's something important to keep in mind, that can be very helpful. Even if I kind of want to blow my brains out, it at least gives me something to get up in the morning for. Just seeing that it's important that I go to my job, it's important I succeed at that, it's important I'm there for my parents. And that's kind of the other reason I don't think I'd ever seriously commit suicide, because I could never do that to my parents and that sort of thing. So I think external accountability to someone, be it God, be it a job, be it just something outside of yourself, is extremely important in kind of dealing with it. Let's see here. What else do we have? So let's kind of talk about the issue of self-harm, because they're not always the same thing. You'll have people who will harm themselves but will never seriously attempt to kill themselves, which I think is kind of an interesting dichotomy. As I think I've talked about in my past, I used to self-harm myself. I never would cut myself because, frankly, I'm kind of scared of knives, to be perfectly honest. But while I wouldn't do that, I would punch myself, pinch myself, stab myself with pens, that sort of thing. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I looked it up, and there is a biological aspect to it. A lot of part of depression and kind of related disorders is a lack of endorphins, certain hormones, and just overall poor brain chemistry. And self-harm triggers a release of endorphins and other types of brain chemicals, and it kind of temporarily rebalances it, if that makes any sense. It kind of fills in those chemicals that your brain is normally lacking. So I think that's probably kind of the missing link in a lot of cases, where people don't really understand why so many people do it. I think there's an aspect of converting your mental pain into physical pain. I think in a lot of ways mental pain is worse than physical pain. It depends on the degree, of course, but it's kind of a distraction. If you're kind of cutting yourself, if you're hurting yourself, kind of your survival instinct kicks in, and that overtakes your normal, I guess, kind of mental things. It's a distraction, which can be very helpful. So you kind of convert that. There is also the obvious aspect of self-hatred. Most people kind of in this situation hate themselves. They see themselves as weak. They see themselves as unworthy of affection, etc. And I think while they might lash out and blame other people, ultimately what they're suffering from is is guilt and a lack of faith in themselves. And they feel guilty for feeling this way. And depression kind of has a feedback loop to it. You're depressed, and then you feel guilty about it. You feel guilty that you're a party pooper, that you can't just kind of smile and bear it, that you're bringing down the people around you who you probably value more than yourself ultimately. So you kind of have all these aspects to it, and then on top of that, your inability to, I guess, kind of deal with your issues, just kind of results in everything getting worse. What was I thinking of again? Yeah, so you want to take out your anger on the object of your hatred, and probably the thing you hate the most is yourself. Like I said, because of your personal failings, because you feel you can't live up to what you need to live up to in order to get out of your state. Etc. So that's all. I think that's kind of self-harm in a nutshell. Let's see here. So, question from RoboCop: do you have any tips for improving self-esteem, or does that sound really paused? No, it doesn't at all. I mean, there's different types of self-esteem. Self-esteem is something that, I mean, it can very easily be kind of a, oh, I needed a sticker, I need an award, etc. But for a lot of people, they need a basic belief in themselves. If you think you're going to screw everything up, if you have no confidence in anything you do, it's really hard to achieve anything because you're probably going to self-sabotage. But it's not like you could just kind of flip a switch and go, okay, I flipped the switch, I'm confident now, I can kind of get things together. So ways to improve your self-esteem. I actually did a video. I don't try to. I don't normally kind of try to tell people to watch my stuff, just because I put out so much shit and it's so long. But just if there's a specific question, I try to answer it. Let's see here. I put out a video for New Year's where I kind of talked about a bunch of kind of what I found were the best ways to kind of the most important life lessons. And this is probably good, and this is kind of why I do these, is kind of a refresher to myself. I don't know if I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but it's I struggle with all these same issues too. So tips for improving self-esteem. I think that's partially why like DSP is such a huge thing. Why people talk about him so much. Why people Okay, here we go. That's the exact title of the video. Why people are just kind of so fascinated by him. So I think honestly the best way to view it is, what's it called? Schadenfreude? Freude? Whatever the kind of enjoying the suffering of others. I think there is a healthy aspect to that, to put things into perspective. Like, you might be a fuck up, but there's always people who are bigger fuck ups than you. Even if it's only in like a limited sense, maybe in a kind of just a with regards to, I'm trying to think of what a minor way would be. Maybe with regards to personal hygiene. Maybe you like aren't employed or whatever, but you at least bathe properly. You at least are able to, I guess, kind of bathe. You're able to maybe you're able to cook for yourself. Maybe you're kind of miserable and you're bad at social situations, but you've at least you have a job. You're making money. Maybe your life's fucked up, but you have loving, supportive parents. In at least one metric, there's always going to be people who are more fucked up than you are. I mean, like, you might have fucked up something, but just think about people you know. Like, in my case, with a close family member of mine, he's a very successful person. He's really good at his job. He's kind of one of the highest people in the in his industry, and he's very wealthy. But at the same time, he's a complete fuck up. His wife's stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from him. His daughters tried to kill him repeatedly. His life is a complete and utter wreck. And you wouldn't really be able to tell that looking at him. And you have all these people around you, and you kind of have a tendency to idealize them and think, oh, they're successful, whereas I'm fucked up. And really, they're not. These people are often, like, around you are more screwed up than you are. You just don't know about it, or you can't see that sort of thing. Okay, let's see here. RG, did writing help you feel better? Help with your self esteem? I always feel better when I've made something I'm proud of. Yes, it did. I mean, this YouTube channel helps with my self esteem. A lot of the stuff I do at work helps with my self esteem a lot. At the same time, I'm very hard on myself. So if I um, kind of screw up on something, it's very hard to take. Because oh, is that better? Let me just turn my mic up a bit. See if that helps. I find that reading or having a hobby helps. It does. Having something to keep your mind occupied is very helpful. It's important. But yeah, when I get a project done at work or something, I do find that does help my self esteem. The problem is if you kind of make a mistake about that. So let's see here. There's a couple other questions. Kind of lost my train of thought there. Let's see, one person's talking about how they wanted to join the military. Yeah, I have a good friend of mine, Squiddo, if you ever see him on here. And basically he comes from a very, or I probably shouldn't be talking about him like that. Oh well. I won't say anything else. I shouldn't have mentioned his name. But just in a lot of cases, people with difficult lives or difficult backgrounds join the military because it's a good. You have a purpose. You have your needs taken care of. It's a difficult life, but it provides you with structure and order. And structure and order is important when you're depressed and if you're kind of someone who, if left by themselves, would kind of mope around all day. That's why if you have a part-time job, even if it's kind of crappy, and you just work a couple shifts a week, that can tremendously help your self-esteem. Just to give you something to get up in the morning to do. And that's kind of why I need them so cancerous, because if you're getting up at noon every day, you just play video games all day every day, and you don't have any human contact, that eats away at your brain. Not to say that there's nothing wrong with if you have a normal life, just taking a mental health day here and there, and just kind of vegging for a day or two, to just kind of recharge your batteries. But if that's all you're doing, that'll rapidly rot your brain, and that's why I talk so much about NEATdom, just because I think it is extremely cancerous, and I don't really do that to attack NEATs. I just do that as kind of I do it out of love, because I've been in that situation. I don't know if I was ever a NEAT because I was always looking for work, but it is really hard to be going nowhere in life. It's very difficult. V Bomb says, when I get stressed out, I find that exercise is very helpful. Yeah, I need to get back into that. Problem is, just with my job, I've been working like 60, 70-hour weeks, and I just haven't had time to exercise or anything like that. Also, the other issue is stress makes you eat unhealthily, so I probably just have to get like a super regimented diet and just stick to it. And yeah, but that's definitely something I have to get back into. So someone asked, what if you, let's see here. Strange Days Gaming says, I had that problem. I went from unemployed and doing nothing all the time to working 50-hour weeks and never taking the time to relax the mind. Yeah, I mean, overwork is also an issue. Overwork can be just as bad. The only thing that's I can say for overwork is at least you're doing something productive, if that makes sense. You're being self-destructive in a productive way. You're at least making money. You're at least every day you go to your job is more experience, and that makes it easier to get a new job, or eventually it's kind of an investment of time and maybe making more money later on in your life, or that sort of thing. So yeah, so you're at least being self-destructive with a purpose. Sometimes you have to view it as doing your time. Like, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to go through a lot of bullshit, but eventually when I'm through all of this, I'm going to have a better I'm going to have some more balance in my life. So I guess that's just something to keep in mind on that topic. But yeah, it is working constantly wears you down. The other thing is, it really isn't productive. If you're working like constantly, I find what happens, and this is when I make most of my mistakes, is I'm rushing to get a report done, or I'm rushing to get a project done, and I'm checking through and I'm checking through, and I'm trying to excuse me, sorry about that. Everything just kind of blurs together. You just kind of see, you just kind of start to see the same numbers over and over again. Your mind starts to go crazy. There is a lot of truth to coming back and looking at something with fresh eyes. Like, you can kind of bang your head against the wall constantly for hours and hours. Someone asked, what game is this? This is Homefront: The Revolution, or as DSP calls it, the worst game ever made. I just am playing this because I find it easier to think if I'm kind of doing something with my hands, and this doesn't really take thought. It's kind of interesting because some of the people who are like professionally stream Dark Souls or professionally stream video games like that find it easier to do good at Dark Souls while they're talking with someone. Just because they're doing it through muscle memory, and it prevents them from thinking too much. But yeah, what was I thinking of again? But no, I think overwork is a big problem in North America. Lack of work-life balance. I know work-life balance is kind of something liberals say, but it's true. Work-life balance is a big problem in a lot of Western countries. I do kind of, in a lot of ways, think what they do in Europe is smart, where they have the 35-hour, 4-day work week. So, like, I do think there's a lot of wisdom to that. I do think your productivity probably is a lot higher. Now, there has to be a balance. You can't have, like, a 2-day work week or a no-day work week. But at the same time, I think people in Western countries and in Asia work way too much overtime. Like, in East Asia, people will literally work themselves to death. And that also happens in North America. V-Bomb says, the conservative idea of wage cucking yourself all day is disgusting. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with working hard. There's nothing wrong with every now and again, like, you have that big project coming up. It's important for the client. You got to get it done. And you pull in a couple long nights. That's fine. But in a lot of cases, that's just routine. Companies don't have enough employees. They aren't willing to pay people properly. In most cases, if you're a white-collar worker, and I'm not saying this as to complain because I do like my job, even if it is very stressful a lot of the time. But a lot of the time, what was I thinking of again? Completely lost my train of thought there. A lot of the time, what happens is people just, regardless of what's happening, your workload is just too heavy. There's too much shit to get done. Like I said, they won't hire enough people. They won't kind of take the time to invest in the business, and you kind of are left holding the bag. And just so you just basically work yourself to death, and you don't have time to do anything else. And I think that's part of the reason why there's so much social isolation. Um, what was I thinking about again? V Bomb says American conservatism is a meme based on money and not the divine or honor. Art and high culture used to be a sign of might. Now McDonald's and Walmart are. Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to say there isn't. I think a large problem is working many hours at a job you hate, have no affinity for, can rot your brain like neatdom. Oh yeah, I was talking about social isolation. So I think part of social isolation is people are just too busy working. Especially kind of with the way it is now, a lot of people have to commute. So if you're like me, you get up at I don't know 7:15 and you get home at around 7 at night. You're just exhausted from a long day of work, and you don't really feel like going out anywhere. You don't really feel like spending time with family. You don't really feel like doing anything else, and you just kind of I don't know sleep or eat or play video games or go and spend money. Once again, there's nothing wrong with any of these things in moderation, but people just don't have the energy to do anything else. Um, and that's just kind of the way it is. But I do think that that is a big part of it. A big part of social isolation, a big part of things kind of breaking down, is people just work too many fucking hours, and there's just too much stress and pressure on them to keep ramping it up and keep ramping it up and keep ramping it up, and they just kind of lose it, especially in East Asian countries. But yeah, I think that's part of it. I guess kind of urbanization, immigration, multiculturalism, a lot of stuff like that is also part of it. Let's see here. Daniel Green says, I work as a lifeguard, so I enjoy helping people and I feel like I'm giving back to the community in some way. Good, perfect. That is good. That is a good and productive thing to do with your time in your life. You're making money. You're interacting with people and you're getting experience. So V-Bomb says in Asia it's really fucked. The long hallway, I'll answer your question in a second. Just what you were saying, V-Bombs. Yeah, it's Asia is fucked up. Like, we could meme about them all day, etc., but I don't envy them. I wouldn't want to live in East Asia. East Asia sounds kind of like hell to me. Even in like the nicer countries like Japan, you go to school 6 days a week. You don't have. You have to go to school after school in a lot of cases. So you have school like 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. You don't have time for anything else. Once you get out of school, you just work yourself to death. Literally, like that's a huge problem in Japan. And that's kind of what a salaryman is. You work for a low wage at a large bureaucracy, and you're expected to just basically put in hours until you die. And in Japan, there isn't much social welfare and there isn't much retirement. So while people live long, a lot of people live their retirement in kind of poverty or in much lower living standards. I mean, it's a very unpleasant society in a lot of ways. I mean, it's not like Africa where everyone's shooting each other. So it's nicer than that, but don't idealize the Orient. It is in many cases an exceedingly miserable, depressing place, and that's kind of part of what China Economy Strong is like. That whole joke is about is that Asians are like ant people, and that they're expected like it's just kind of their culture that everybody um, is expected to work themselves to death, even if it doesn't really serve an actual purpose. To be perfectly honest, in a lot of cases, you just have to work yourself to death. But yeah, some people in Japan literally live in cupboards. Yeah, and it's true, and I think this is part of the way I view the world is, I guess for lack of a better term, nationalism is it's about the betterment of your people. If you if everybody is living like fucking serfs, if everybody just has no time for themselves and is just kind of miserable, what's the point of having a strong nation? What's the point of national greatness? What's the point of having this great economy if you can't enjoy any of the benefits of it? If you're just stressed all the time and you want to basically kill yourself. And I think that is an issue in North America. I mean, in Europe, they take it too far with excessive social welfare, with excessive stuff like that. But yeah, I think there's an aspect to that. Let's see here. What else were people talking about? The long hallway. What do you think about employers who want to hire young people with tons of experience and endless amount of skills straight out of college, but are not even willing to pay a decent wage? That's a huge problem. Um, it is. It's a. It is. I think it's why I call us kind of part of a a lost generation. Just because a lot of young people they get out of school, they want to get their lives started. They want to get a job that pays decently and do something that their education is related to. And I think in a lot of cases, people are really hard on them. They're like, oh, they're lazy. They're not willing to work hard. They're not willing to get a job. They're not willing to do stuff. Um, and I think in a lot of cases, what was I think talking about it? Again, I lost my train of thought there. A lot of cases, they really would like to get their work going, their life going. They'd like to get a job. They'd like to have a family, etc. They just it's really hard to get a job. It's hard to get a job if you don't have a job. It's hard to get a job if you don't have experience. It's hard to get experience if you don't have it in this economy, like a master's degree. Like I remember back when I was applying for jobs, entry level positions would require like 4 years of experience and a master's degree. And of course, the question is, how do you get the 4 years of experience if you don't have a if they won't let you have a how do you get the years of experience if you don't have the years of experience? If even like the lowliest entry level jobs require all that stuff, what the hell are you supposed to do? The answer is, I don't know. It's super difficult. You kind of have to know somebody. You have to get lucky. You have to find maybe someone who's willing to give you a chance. And that's really difficult, especially with baby boomers, because baby boomers, I find a lot of time, don't want to give millennials the chance. Like I said, they kind of resent them. They view them as lazy. They view them as entitled. And there's some truth to it, but they're kind of the ones who, in a lot of cases, have they have a living, and millennials don't. And they hold them to standards that they don't hold themselves to. And I do think, like I said, that kind of describes, I think, the way I think about millennials, etc. That is nuts. You don't even need an undergraduate degree for a lot of jobs, to be honest. Well, it's true. You don't. Like a lot of stuff, and this is the kind of thing that I have a lot of issues with Aaron Clary, but he does really good videos about this thing, and he was saying every job I have ever had requires grade 7 math. It's an employer's market, so basically what they can do is they can get a bunch of stuff for free, so they can just keep jacking up qualifications. They can be like, oh, I have tons of people who are willing to work who will work entry level, who have, I don't know, a couple years of experience, maybe like who have like instead of hiring someone with no experience, I have 20 people with lots of experience that I can hire instead. And they won't give you a chance. And that's made worse also with mass immigration and an influx of skilled workers. Clary pushed people into the army to get killed. No, like I really don't like Aaron Clary. I have a lot of issues with him. I'm just saying on this issue, I think he makes a lot of sense. But in general, there's a lot of things I don't think he's a good human being. It's not a time to go on a rant about that. But rest assured, I know all about all his bullshit. Companies don't want to pay to train people, Horace Finkelstein says. Yeah, it's true. The company I work at now actually will pay to train people. They'll be like, we prefer to develop internal capacity rather than just hiring contractors to do everything. We'd rather spend a couple $1,000s to buy the software to get our employees trained, to get it so they can just do it themselves, rather than dealing with an endless stream of external people, rather than I guess just kind of dealing with all that bullshit. So yeah, so I think if I ran a business, that is the approach I would take. I think I would want loyal employees. I'd want employees that were well trained. I'd want employees to, I know it's a dumb meme, but are constantly trying to improve, are constantly being given opportunities to improve, and not just these like stupid team building workshops, but actual like technical skills, actual management skills, that sort of thing. But a lot of companies just aren't willing to do that. And part of the reason is just automation. Part of it is mass immigration, particularly skilled immigration. It's very hard if you want to go into the trades in a lot of cases, because yeah, a lot of stuff is automated. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there again. Sorry if I'm losing it a bunch. I'm kind of tired, but I'm kind of on a roll here, so. Yeah, and I think that's part of the whole humanities thing. I think what it is because stuff is automated, like what the fuck else are they supposed to do? I mean, people say, oh, everyone can go into STEM. But if we saw, to be honest, if we saw a large shift towards STEM and a lot of people start going into STEM, I think STEM would become just as oversaturated as the humanities are. I mean, that's very possible that everyone goes into STEM, or just a bunch of people go in. It starts to reduce sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Okay, if people start going into STEM, what happens is there's supply and demand. If the supply for STEM increases, then the demand will go down and the wages will go down. So, yeah, so is there a problem? Should more people be going into STEM? Yeah, more people should probably be going to STEM. But if we start making that the default destination, then science and engineers are going to be unemployable. Like, there's only so many scientists and engineers you need in a society, and we probably don't have quite enough now. But stuff would rapidly fill up if you started seriously just encouraging people into doing that. Same thing with trades. We talk about sending everybody into trades, that kind of thing. While trades are underrepresented, I think the thing that's the most kind of needs to be encouraged is farming. We're heading for a massive crisis because farmers are super old and there's no one to replace them. So that's probably really what we should be doing. But yeah, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's as simple as just say people should stop going to humanities, they should go into STEM. That's just kind of shifting the problem, and that'll probably help a lot of people, but it's ultimately just going to move it. Also, just some people, as RoboCop says, aren't like capable of doing that. Maybe they are legitimately talented at, I don't know, in my case, political science, or maybe they're actually like one of the 1 in 1,000 people who should be a philosopher. But you can't just kind of force them into STEM and go, oh, okay, don't worry. They're just going to go into STEM. Everything's going to work out. That's just not really realistic, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah, so it's kind of difficult. I don't really see how this situation is going to be resolved. And this is why I'm starting to wonder if maybe we will have to have some form of minimum income at some point in time. Because there's just not going to be enough work for everybody to do. And like Ramsey Paul was talking about this, and he's like, what we have is we have a bunch of people who basically, he's like, think about society, think about the percentage of people who do jobs that aren't necessary or useful, who just spend all day doing stuff like making PowerPoint presentations. And I don't mean like not useful PowerPoint presentations, but making useless PowerPoint presentations, doing crappy bureaucratic stuff, just all these jobs that really don't contribute anything to society. And RoboCop says they'll create a neat boom. I know, but it's if it's not one thing, it's another. And I guess that's kind of the point I'm trying to make is none of these are good solutions. But I think it's something as a society we have to think about. Because I think these are kind of a lot of the root causes of people's kind of depression and anxiety. I remember I was talking to someone about the number of hours people work, and they were saying, well, Argent, like, yes, people in medieval times probably worked more, but they also had more days off. They had feast days, they had festivals, they had fairs. They had like half the year in a lot of cases where they would kind of have a bit of a break. They'd still have to do stuff inside, but the farming would be over. They'd kind of be inside for the winter. I'm not trying to say medieval life was one of luxury and leisure, but yeah. It probably isn't as bad as you think. You have to understand it in a lot of cases. The negative impression we have about these times, like there is a lot of issues with them, but the people who write a lot of the history books and teach about it just really, really hate the past. Like, what was I thinking of? Like, there's that whole meme that people lived to like 24 or something back then. The truth of the matter, from what I understand, is people, the average life expectancy was 24 if you kept into. If you keep into the infant mortality rate. That's what I was thinking about. Yes, the infant mortality rate. If you exclude that, the life expectancy actually wasn't that bad. If you made it to like through your childhood, you're probably going to live a decently long life. I think it was in ancient Rome. Uh, the upper class, if they made it through childhood, would live to be like, let's see if someone fills it in. If you made it to 14, you would probably live to be in your 60s. Yeah, and that's kind of how it worked. It's kind of a meme that people just drop dead at like 20 years old. Uh, it's just kind of high infant mortality rate. It's also it's you have to understand life expectancies are kind of very nebulous and very difficult to kind of gauge because different countries gauge them in different ways, or things like infant mortality. Like I think in America's case, they count if the baby dies after it's born, then that counts as towards the infant mortality rate. Whereas if in other countries, if the baby dies as it's being born, that doesn't count as infant mortality. So America's infant mortality rate is higher. So there's a lot of different ways to calculate life expectancy and that sort of stuff. In a lot of cases, it is kind of a meme that people died that long. Jew Sicilians and Japs live forever. Yeah, they really do. Asians just live longer. It's funny when they try to like figure this stuff out, and I mean a lot of it probably is diet and lifestyle. You don't see a lot of fat Japanese people. At the same time, though, Asians, all things being equal, just have longer natural lifespans. It is just kind of genetic. Um, it's funny whenever they're trying to figure that stuff out. The birth of multi-molecular organisms is where everything went wrong. Yeah, Reddit is pretty cancerous. Japs keep busy usually. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why the Japanese live so long. I'm Jewish and several of my relatives made it to 105, 104. Asians have a high metabolism. Yeah, they probably do actually. That would explain a lot. Argent, sorry if you're already mentioned this, but just joined. What's your opinion on antidepressants? I'm supportive of antidepressants largely because they've saved my life on a number of occasions. I mean, it kind of. It depends because some people's illnesses come from more biological factors and some people's illnesses come from more social factors. If your illness is more biological in nature, like what is there bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, something like that, then it's probably you should probably just be on medication. Like bipolar people have to take medication their entire lives. People with like diseases related to impulse control and that sort of thing, they probably need to take medication for their lives just to keep themselves sane and to keep themselves functional. I think in a lot of cases, though, the purpose of medication is you need to have a bit of self-esteem. You have to have a bit of energy to try to improve your life. And I think for a lot of people, if they're just spinning their wheels in the mud and they don't really know what they're doing or where they're going, it is helpful for them to. Okay, I have no idea where the fuck this guy is. I don't really want to look up a guide. Maybe I'll just quit this. What was I thinking of again? I lost my train of thought. Let me. Yeah, I'm just giving up. I can't figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do in that mission. Space Marines live forever. It's so funny you say that because I actually was looking that up unironically the other day because I was wondering how long Space Marines live. So yeah, they live forever unless they're killed. So they can eternally be in service to the God Emperor. I have to do a reaction review on what's it called again? Um, on Warhammer 40k soon because that would be interesting. You see Logan Argent? Yeah, I didn't really like it that much. It's like the lobster immortality meme. Lobster immortality meme's pretty funny. I don't think lobsters are actually immortal. I don't know if anything's immortal. Um, it's not a review I really like that much. I might actually take that down. I don't know. To be honest, maybe we should just kill people when they reach the age of like 50 or something to get rid of the excess population. Maybe it could be like Logan's Run. People seem pretty happy in Logan's Run, so yeah. Greenland sharks are immortal. Yeah, I think I remember reading something about that. Let's look this up. Greenland shark. Arjun, are you gonna buy the Switch? I'm gonna wait for some more games to come out. When like what's it called again? Persona 5 comes out, then I will probably buy a Switch. Until then, I'm just kind of waiting for it to get better. The Zelda game doesn't look amazing. I'm willing to hold off until they get the bugs worked out. And other games get together. Greenland sharks live about 400 years. Is Persona 5 coming to the Switch? What do you know of David Irving? I don't know anything about him. Raging Papist says, I'm happy to see that Andromeda is an even bigger shit show than we thought it would be. Yeah, Raging Papist, I was on the Bitchute, or how the hell you pronounce his name, live stream last week, and basically like half of it was just us watching Mass Effect Andromeda and just making fun of how shitty it was. It was pretty great. It's so bad. It is just unendurable shit. Let's see here. I'll just post a link to that if anyone's interested. Yeah, Raging, you should ask if you can come on sometime. You'd be a great addition. We mainly do... You would fit right in with the podcast. Just your kind of religious, political, and views, and most of the time we just talk about like Warhammer 40k or comics or movies or video games or that sort of stuff, and just kind of do it like that. Oh yeah, that Irving. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The greatest story ever told. Is that the Hitler one? I don't know. I've never seen it. The greatest, or is that the Jesus one? So I haven't seen the Jesus one. Max von Sydow as Jesus. That actually sounds kind of interesting. I'll have to watch that sometime. DSP said Andromeda was mediocre. It looks like shit. It doesn't look mediocre to me. It looks absolutely horrific. I'll have to watch this at some point, though. Because I always have heard about it, but I've never actually seen it. But if it has Charlton Heston, then it can't be that bad, can it? Hmm. I feel when you slay your inner dragon. It's a good feeling, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Argent, will you have another hangout for subscribers soon? Good question. Good question. I was thinking of doing that tonight, but I got home late and there was a bunch of bullshit that happened involving work. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll do it Sunday. We'll say roughly I'll try to, depending on what happens, do it Sunday afternoon. And what it'll be is make sure you have a Google Plus account and make sure I'm added on it. And I'll just invite people manually. So just like in the chat, just go, just say, I'd like to come on, and then I'll invite you on. I can't post the link because people, we can't have nice things because some people are autistic assholes and stuff like that. Anyways, Argent, off topic, but what will you look for in a wife when you decide you're ready? I'll address that some other time. She has to be a pony in 2D to begin with. But anyways, guys, I think I'm gonna go to bed soon. I just like to thank you all a lot. Talking with you guys, I was feeling really down. I was feeling really bad, and I think we covered a lot of really good stuff here. I think we talked about a lot of things that really a lot of us are struggling with lately, and yeah, and I just like to thank you guys. It really helped me out mentally, and I just want to say I love you all, and I don't mean that in a gay way. I mean that just being nice. So good night.